I grew up downtown. I grew up on 20th Street in Peter Cooper, which was, an amazing place to grow up. My dad worked a lot. He worked in the travel business. So when I was growing up, he actually worked at TWA. He was in sales and marketing. By the time I was sort of in 5th grade, I had been like all over Europe and Africa and all sorts of super interesting places. My mom worked when I was young as well. And she was a casting director for real people in TV commercials. So I don't know if you remember like back in the day when they used to like find real people on the street who'd be like, oh, I use, Downy fabric softener. My husband is my high school boyfriend. We went to Dalton and we actually met at a high school basketball practice. I was in 9th grade. I was not a good student. I was a very happy, social, nice, well-adjusted kid. But I got into my sort of fair share of trouble. I was on a lot of sports teams. I was so much more interested in doing that than I was in like sitting in the library reading Moby Dick. Well, I spent the summers going out to the Hamptons. I've been going out there since I was 2. My parents actually had a house in Wainscott long before sort of the Hamptons was such a she place. My first job out there was actually when I was in 8th grade. Actually from 8th grade all the way through high school pretty much. I worked out there at a place called the Sagaponic General Store, which went out of business a couple of years ago. I actually worked behind the deli counter. And I made sandwiches and cut meats and did all sorts of things. Or I worked back in the kitchen and I'd make like hundreds of pounds of coleslaw and chicken salad and everything for like these huge parties. My first job out of college, I thought I wanted to be in the TV business. And I went to work at Turner Broadcasting. I did ad sales and marketing for Cartoon Network. And I loved it. I learned a lot about building client relationships and the sort of integration with sales and marketing and analyzing research and how to present and how to do, go after new business. So I definitely picked up some interesting skills there, but ultimately I knew that I was sort of interested in something a little different than what I was doing there. And so I decided to apply to business school. 9/11 also happened. That was obviously like a very sad and difficult time for New Yorkers in general, but it had like a huge impact on sort of employment opportunities in and around the city without question. But I was talking to my father-in-law and he at the time was involved in, with Related, in the development of Time Warner. He said, I think you might be interested in something like this. There's a really smart woman we're working with. She's definitely a handful, but she's doing some really interesting things in her business, and I think you should at least talk to her. So I went and met with Louise Sunshine. So I get to her office, I'm sitting there waiting for her. I think I waited for an hour and a half in the reception area. And then she pulled me in, which actually is very typical Louise, knowing her now, to like a room full of people. So I was sitting in some project meeting. I don't know who any of these people are. She doesn't even introduce me. About an hour and a half later, so 3 hours after we were actually supposed to initially have a conversation, I'm in her office and she just says, so what do you want to do? And we start having we start sort of chatting a little bit about her business, and her business was at a really interesting point because she had just sold it to NRT, which is now known as Realogy. But she offered me a job and I said, look, I'll come work for you basically for like a month or 2. I'll work for free, don't pay me, but I want to really take that time to get to know you, to understand the business. So literally for the next month, I basically went everywhere she went. It was a very small company at the time, and she was working, with Vornado on One Beacon Court and with Related on the Time Warner Center. She was also working on some things downtown, like the Richard Meier buildings. It was the very early days of the new development world. So after, I don't know, somewhere like 45 days, 60 days, wherever it was, she turned to me one day and she just said, this is kind of ridiculous. Do you want to start getting paid already? I became president in 2006. I was definitely young and inexperienced when I sort of took over that role. There's no question. I had a unique sort of perspective of how the business worked because the way her business was structured is we really didn't have any support. So because we didn't have in-house attorney, we didn't have an in-house HR person, we didn't really have an in-house finance team, we didn't have anything, we were working on jobs, we were working on developments, and anything else that had to go on, she would just be like, Kelly, can you do it? And I just never said no. I mean, even if I didn't know how to do it, I would try and figure it out. I was actually the one who was drafting like all of the new business proposals and negotiating them and dealing with legal contracts. I mean, I didn't go to law school. I have no idea what I was doing. And dealing with like financial projections for NRT, and then also like going out and working on projects and flying out to Las Vegas once a month to open the Las Vegas office, and doing all sorts of crazy things at the time, which I was just game to pretty much do anything. I was sort of in a unique seat at the table when they needed somebody to kind of step up and take a more, let's call it, presidential role in the running of the business to do it. And I think because I had graduated from Stern and had my MBA, I think that gave me sort of a credential that maybe like a corporate entity like NRT or Realogy kind of needed to get comfortable with someone that age running the company. I mean, people who are like launching and running the biggest businesses in the world, you know, the Facebooks and the Instagrams and those of the world, I mean, those people are a lot younger than me. When things get really hard and the market is just actually like not cooperating and developers are actually missing their hurdles for their loans and such, you know, they have to actually show the market that they're doing something. They have to show that they're trying. And sort of one of sort of the boxes that they could check is kind of change broker. The development world, when you go into the relationship, it's not like a date. It's like a marriage. I mean, we work on so many of these projects for so many years. There's projects that we've worked on for over 10 years that we're still working on today. There's like a lot of personal sacrifice that goes into these things. You miss your anniversary sometimes. You come home early for a vacation because you have a presentation you need to do for investors to actually raise money for the project. But in the real situation that we actually get fired from a job unexpectedly, which has really only happened once in my career so far. Twice. It's tough. It's really tough. Becoming a mom has been amazing. It's actually been a long time coming. If I had to say what about work-wise has changed the most since Scarlett is born, Pam and I used to speak very, very frequently at night. Like, if not every night, almost every night, we would talk like at the end of the day and sort of just have like a major catch up. And, you know, I would have a glass of wine and she would have her scotch and we would talk on the phone and kind of just download on various things that were going on throughout the day. We don't have those anymore. Pam Lehman has always been an amazing mentor in that regard. She has an unbelievably close relationship with her girls and with her husband and with her parents and her family, and no one works harder than her, but has great work-life balance. And if you're in a meeting with her and her phone rings and it's one of them, she takes it. So that has always been like a very good, strong example for me. Well, we're working on a project for them right now. So we're just finishing up sales, actually. We're about to start the leasing effort through City Habitats, and we're just pretty much finishing up the sales effort. We only have a couple of left at the Greenpoint. Good thing it was a highly successful project. Makes Sunday night dinners a little bit more fun. I don't play any games. I have very high expectations for actually how people should work and how they should behave. I expect them to be good at their jobs, but I also expect them to be good people. I am most proud of building a company that I think has not only done extraordinarily well over the years, sort of financially and in the business, and sort of as a reputation of the best in the business, but for fostering the kind of culture and retaining the kind of talent that we have over so many years. The way that I actually lead the company and run the company is that I believe that people will only work as hard as I work. And the attitude of also what that means is not actually just telling people what they should do for you, but it's actually being able to do it yourself. So when I'm walking into a sales office or running around town, I'm the first one to be crawling around on the floor with a bottle of Windex and some paper towels and changing the flowers, or, you know, sprucing up the bathrooms and rearranging the cushions, because if I'm not willing to do it and I don't think it's important, why should they?